Thank you, everyone who's working so hard to make ranked choice voting a reality in Arizona. You are ahead of the curve, and people need to catch up. I love people who've been advocating for ranked choice voting. I'm going to try some adjectives to describe you all. Really, really nerdy. I don't know if that's right. But like very logical, very solutions oriented. And you got there ahead of me. I was brought ranked choice voting sometime during the presidential campaign, and when it was explained to me, I was like, "This is the greatest thing ever." And someone said, "Will you be for this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And then I didn't make a huge deal of it on the campaign because it wasn't super relevant on the presidential. And then at a certain point in 2020, I had a Zoom with a group of people, and I asked, "Who is the most prominent person who's come out in favor of ranked choice voting?" And then they said, "Probably you." And I said, well, that's both great and terrible at the same time. You know, it's like I'm glad that I'm considered like a highly visible proponent, but I really should not be the only one because it's so obvious. The Forward Party is my attempt to mainstream ranked choice voting and nonpartisan open primaries in the same way that I mainstream universal basic income circa 2019 and 2020. Because there's going to be nothing good coming out of Washington without some kind of evolution in our politics. And to me, ranked choice voting is a huge part of that evolution. It will transform the incentives of our legislators from trying to placate and please the 10 to 15 most extreme voters, instead putting their focus on the 51% of us that we all imagine that they should be accountable to. Like, it's very, very powerful, very extraordinary. It's better within a party primary than the current plurality voting system, but it's even more powerful out in the wild outside of the party primaries. Still, if you get it done within a party primary, still an improvement. I meant to talk a little bit about my experience running for mayor with ranked choice voting, and it was better. I got to campaign with Catherine Garcia, who was my second choice. I wanted to model that RCV enables you to be more collegial and build coalitions, and I genuinely wanted her, you know, like after myself, I thought she was the best choice. And so one of the jokes I tell is that take it from a guy who lost a ranked choice voting election. Ranked choice voting in the future. You know, it's sort of a sign of selflessness, I guess. But the best thing about it is that it makes it so that different coalitions will form and different issues can rise to the surface, where if you have 5% of people really excited about something, maybe in a normal system that might not be a huge deal, but in a ranked choice voting system, you might get every candidate on board with that because I would look at it and be like, hey, you know, I need to vie for this 5%. So it's going to be a force for moderation and reasonableness in our politics, which is what the vast majority of Americans want. It's just that most people don't know that it's available to us, don't know its power, don't know how profound a transformation it would lead to. So that's what we have to try to show them. We have to deliver for them the solution that they're hungry for. And you all have been grinding and doing that work, and people are like, ranked choice what? And like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, that like their eyes glaze over, they get confused. So it's one of those things where as soon as someone understands it, or better yet, they try it, then everything changes. And that's certainly been a pattern I saw play out here in New York City. It's a pattern that we've seen over and over again. You all are the vanguard. We are the vanguard. Arizona could be the vanguard too. I know we're trying to work on ballot initiatives and local measures in the next 12 months and then also for 2024. I'm really excited about Arizona. I'm almost certainly going to come to Phoenix and do some events, and so we can have like a kind of a de facto RCV rally. You know, that's actually what I bring to the table, everyone. Ranked choice voting rally. You know, that sounds like an oxymoron, no offense. But we can make it happen. We're going to make it happen in Phoenix. You'll be there. I'll be there. We'll have a blast. This really is my purpose in American life, is to take something that seems a little bit wonky, maybe too good to be true, and then make it obvious. But it would not be possible without you all doing the hard work, making the hard case, trying to get signatures and votes and energy around it. So I'm just grateful to you all. I want you to see me as your companion, your comrade in arms. I'll try to do my part to the best of my ability, but my part is much less important than your part. One thing I'm confident is true in Arizona, because it's true everywhere else, is people would much rather listen to other Arizonans than some Asian dude, even if they saw him on TV. So what I'll do is bring them to you all, and then you will make the case in the most powerful terms possible. Thrilled to be here today, and thrilled to answer some questions about, going through an RCV election and living to tell about it. Saying that, hey, look, one of the things I will say as a candidate that's vastly superior is when you walk around the street, everyone says, hey, I voted for you, because you could be anywhere on their ballot. Like, you have no idea if it was, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, but they'll be like, hey, voted for you. And you're like, oh, thank you. It just makes that connection so much easier. So that should be a selling point to everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Andrew. This is Blake Socket. I'm going to be passing the questions along to you tonight. So the first question we have is, what's the most effective way that you've seen to get people excited about ranked choice voting?
The single biggest thing that's gotten people excited about ranked choice voting is that it gives rise to people who right now feel blocked out of the system because they represent a point of view that's not the mainstream. And so I think that there's a real alignment there where you say, look, if you're an independent or libertarian or some other point of view right now, you just get shut out of the system, and this helps you. That's one argument that's been really positive. Another is around letting people express their true preferences. If someone's very practical, you could say, look, it's less costly. You avoid costly runoffs that in some instances can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions. So those are the arguments that I've seen work.
And now, building on the nerdy theme, how about research and data? What kind of research and data have you seen that is compelling to people about why ranked choice voting works?
Well, some of the data that I cite from the New York election, which is recent, is that 95% of New Yorkers found it easy to use, and almost 80% want to do it again. And my joke is that if 77% of New Yorkers want to do it again, that's essentially 99% anywhere else, because it's like as close to unanimous as you can get in New York City. And something like over 90% of people decided to rank more than one candidate, which means that they understood exactly what to do. Another thing that could be constructive for a lot of the people here is that the data clearly shows that women candidates do better in the system, which makes sense to me very intuitively, because women tend to be more reasonable and rational. And I think, actually, I heard a woman candidate say that the reason why she felt like she could run was because of ranked choice voting, because she thought that being able to go to people and say, look, I'm a reasonable human, like put me somewhere on your ballot, was a much more appealing proposition to her than I'm the answer, vote for me or else.
Great. We have several questions in the chat about ranked choice voting and open primaries. And if ranked choice voting needs to be combined with open primaries to be effective, and how that combination works best. So maybe tell us a little bit about what you think about open primaries and how that can or can't work in partnership with ranked choice voting.
Thank you for the question. It's like peanut butter jelly to me, where it's like, you like peanut butter, you like jelly, but together it's magic. That's what I say. Or chocolate and peanut butter if you're a Reese's fan. So ranked choice voting is better than the plurality voting system in just about every environment. But if you manage to combine it with open primaries, then it can be particularly powerful because then the incentives change for the person who ultimately wins and needs to get reelected. You have different points of view emerge. You have true democracy in action, where instead of saying, and I can use my own experience, in New York City, 900,000 people participated in the Democratic primary, which was up 11% from the last. So people are like, yay, it went up 11%. But then you're like, wait a minute. New York City has 8.3 to 9 million people. So you decided who the mayor was based upon 10 or 11% of the population. Like, that's not so good. And so if you had nonpartisan open primaries, I guarantee you it would have been a significantly higher number of voters. So if you can combine the two, then you can say to folks, look, genuinely vote for whomever you want, and nothing is off the table, and there's no spoiler effect. Then I think you could activate a lot of people in a race where customarily they do feel locked out. And I don't know how many races are like that in Arizona, because you all are, at least from the outside looking in, purple. But then there are probably some districts that are very red or very blue where someone would feel excluded, and an open primary and ranked choice voting combination would change that.
You were somewhat famous in your presidential campaign for the way in which you went about fundraising, doing a lot of it via social media and small individual donations and so on. So there's a couple of questions about people thinking about how do we identify outside the box fundraising ways to adopt ranked choice voting. So maybe give us a little bit of your insight on ways in which we might be able to raise money to support these efforts.
All right. So again, one reason why I'm so grateful to you all is that there's not that much sex appeal to RCV, and so when you go out and make the social media campaign, it doesn't tug on the heartstrings like other things do. It appeals to like a certain type of person. I'm like a ground up and a top down person simultaneously. So what do I mean by that in this very context? We should definitely be trying harder to have broader appeal, educational videos, like asking people to contribute a few bucks, just to be able to signal support. One of my goals, again, is to build a genuine popular movement around this in a way that has not happened yet. And it's not the easiest thing in the world, but I think we can do it. And then there's the other direction, which is try to get rich, nerdy people to cut bigger checks. And I'm a fan of that approach too. I think in this context, that one might even be a little bit more efficient in terms of getting significant sums in the door for some of these ballot initiatives, truthfully. And it's because of the nature of this appeal, where people are very facts oriented and like solutions and are logical, rational, can get behind this. There is a lot of energy coming this direction. I was in a room with some people who are very rich, who are talking about this, but it's still a backwater in terms of philanthropy. What was expressed to me was that the entire amount of democracy reform slash upgrade, which includes ranked choice voting area, is $153 million a year. And if you contrast that with any of the other major buckets of philanthropy, where education might be 6 billion or whatever the heck the number is, then democracy is not getting its just due. But this is changing, where now more people are homed in on the fact that our democracy is disintegrating and that ranked choice voting is one of the answers. So one of my big jobs is to go around the country to the deep-pocketed folks and say, look, you care about climate change. You give $1 million to that. It's like, you know what? We're never going to make any progress on climate change if you don't actually get into the guts and get the incentives right, and that's ranked choice voting. Believe it or not, more and more of these people are waking up to that reality. And so that's a case I want to make in addition to trying to activate more popular energy around it.
That's fantastic news, and we certainly appreciate your work in that space. There are a couple of questions about goals. So, how big are your goals? Is it local in Tempe, or statewide in Arizona, or national for the presidential election? Where do you think the biggest leverage from ranked choice voting is, and what kind of goals have you set?
I think that we are in an urgent situation where we need to try to put some serious points on the board in 2022 in preparation for what's going to be probably an insane cycle in 24. So, what can we get done in 22? I think. I think if we have some victories at the state level, that would be enormous, and that is my goal. I think that we should expect to win some municipalities. I believe we're up to something like 50 cities using ranked choice voting, and I expect that number to grow significantly, and that's super helpful because it normalizes it. And then everyone's like, "Oh, of course," and then you use it, and then what seems arcane becomes common sense very quickly. But in Arizona, my goal would be to have a statewide initiative on the ballot in either 22 or 24. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'd be the only one making that happen. I mean, that there are the people on this call, and then there are people who are part of other organizations. But I think that's something we should be aspiring to. And if there's anything I can do to help with that, I will.
Fantastic, thank you. Another question: how do we get beyond the nerds? How do we make this? You said it's not sexy; it appeals to nerds, but clearly to win, we have to appeal to a relatively broad range of voters. So, how do we make that appeal to maybe the folks who aren't on the call tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing my best to try and mainstream it in different ways, and we're going to see what works and what sticks. The single strongest case we can make, in my opinion, is telling people it's like, hey, do you think it's working right now? And no one thinks it's working right now, but they're casting about for a solution. And so if you say to them, you're just going to help ranked choice voting, and here's how, particularly where polarization is concerned, folks are very, very agitated that things are breaking down in terms of civility and being able to speak to your fellow Arizonans or fellow Americans. So I will confess to you all that it's a little bit frustrating that people are always like, oh, polarization bad, what are we going to do? And then all of us are jumping up and down being like, ranked choice voting would help, and then they're like, oh, what are we going to do? It's like that, the entire thing is like we all are working on a genuine solution. So I'll share with you all, like, I've been an independent for 6 weeks. It's been a great 6 weeks. But there have been a number of ticks forward where people are looking at it saying like, oh, I need to look at this more closely. So one was January 6th. Like, that insurrection scared the shit out of a lot of people. And so a lot of people are like, oh, what are we going to do to combat polarization? And then the Democratic losses in Virginia and the near loss in New Jersey also like scared the shit out of people. We're like, oh, Democrats are going to lose. Which they probably will. Most of us recognize that. and I mean, not to laugh. I mean, it is what it is. So, I think there's more and more energy coming our way where people are getting more concerned about the problems, and we just have to be able to serve them this solution. But I have seen progress even in the last 6 weeks where people who ordinarily aren't really talking about this stuff are all of a sudden saying ranked choice voting. How many of you have seen that too? You started to see that? Yeah, I've started to see that. And I think I can make more people sing the same tune. Because it's right. There are frankly not that many solutions on the table.
There are a couple of questions about candidates for office. Maybe they're incumbents, maybe they're not, but how we get candidates excited and talking about ranked choice voting as part of, they have a certain platform like you had when you're running for office. How do we get them encouraged and talking about ranked choice voting?
Well, this is going to be something the Forward Party can do, and I would love your help with this. So if you're a candidate, especially if you're an outsider candidate, like you're just looking for anyone who will volunteer for you, we'll vote for you, we'll donate to you $5 or whatever it is. So the Forward Party wants to make it politically advantageous for people to be for ranked choice voting and open primaries during their campaign, and then they'll get votes, they'll get money. The goal is to make it so that the Forward Party has money and a giant mailing list, so that if a candidate says, "Hey, I'm into this stuff," then they get good things out of it. And then if we make that happen, then you'll see all the candidates start embracing it. Because if you're an outsider, what do you have to lose? Like, you're not protected by the system anyway. And so I think so as long as we actually get the votes and the money and the attention behind candidates who commit to this, then we can get a lot of them to commit to this.
Thank you. Question from a couple of people about more of your New York City experience, and specifically some pushback that you got for campaigning or endorsing, Ms. Garcia as the second choice. And so whether you think that's a benefit of ranked choice voting, do you expect to see more of that? Why did you do it? And how might it look in the future with ranked choice voting elections?
So I don't really remember getting much pushback when campaigning with Catherine, except for the fact that she didn't cross-endorse me that avidly, which I didn't blame her for, because she didn't have much of a choice. Like, she'd been campaigning on experience, and then, like, because I didn't have government experience, if she was like, experience the most important thing, vote for me, and here's like the next guy if it's not me, like that, so I understood going in that there was going to be a little bit of tap dancing. But I don't remember getting criticized otherwise. I mean, there was some. Actually, I do remember now. There's some criticism on the part of, like, certain candidates saying that it was going to disenfranchise certain types of voters, even though that made no sense on the face of it. And so that was a little strange, honestly. But that was, I think there was. Frankly, like, I think there was one black candidate who would make that case, and then the other black candidate was like, "No, that doesn't make any sense." You know what I mean? And the one black candidate that was saying it, like, tended to just use race as a bit of a club, anytime something came up. So that was the only criticism I remember. But the other, Maya Wiley was like, "Yeah, no, that's not a thing." And by the way, what I said about women, it's true for minority candidates too, by the numbers. Because if you end up going to a traditional runoff, the minority candidate is going to have a harder time winning. Whereas if you're in a ranked choice voting environment, they'll have a higher chance of winning.
Andrew, in your experience, either in New York City or in the research that you've seen, does ranked choice voting increase voter turnout or decrease the cost of the elections? Or what are some of the other tangible benefits that we can point to, aside from just improving the civility and the partnership in the election?
It's appealing in large part because it would avoid any runoff situation. So that's going to save cities money. And at this time, that's a very compelling argument. And there is an argument that it did increase turnout, because turnout went up 11% or so. People were excited about that. So those are two practical arguments. I'm actually right now, someone texted me, like, their 10 arguments that worked at the municipal level. This was in Utah, so now I'm going to see if I can find them, because they were pretty good. I think I touched on 6 of them, but I might have missed one. I'll find it, whatever. Maybe I'll send it to you all. There's like a Letterman list, like a ranked choice voting list, where this gentleman made like the 10 points around ranked choice voting, and it was like, express your true preferences, saves money, like helps different types of candidates. I guess we've hit most of them, but I'll see if I can find it.
Great, that would be awesome. There's a question about Alaska and Lisa Murkowski, and if you have any comments on how ranked choice voting being adopted in Alaska might have had or will have an impact on either the actions that she takes in the Senate or the way in which that election goes.
Yeah, I've been making the case that the shift to open primaries and ranked choice voting has freed up Senator Murkowski to be more independent, including voting to impeach Trump. and that's something we can credit for better incentives. It's an argument I make about trying to make the same switch in other states around the country, because if you had, frankly, 6 or 8 senators who are willing to go against Trump, then that might be the difference in getting some real reforms passed or protecting democracy and secretaries of state. So Alaska is the template in many ways. I think it's one reason why we're excited about Arizona is that you can see it happening in Arizona very realistically.
Just a couple of remaining questions. One is a suggestion. Can you get back on Joe Rogan's podcast and bring up ranked choice voting?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Reached out to his team, and like that, they said that they are going to see about a schedule. So I'm optimistic, but I don't have anything to report. But thank you.
Another question, and we'll just get a couple more in. So we really appreciate your time. What are some of the most effective arguments you've heard, directly to lawmakers or decision makers about ranked choice voting? So, not the population, but if we're going to a town council person, a mayor, a state representative, and trying to influence them to support ranked choice voting. What are the most effective arguments there?
In that context, it's around practicality. It's like, look, this will save you money, get instant runoff, and you can avoid having to do it again and again. There was one argument that worked really well for this municipal leader, where apparently when they had to do this multiple ballots at a convention, it took 6 hours, 7 hours, and everyone wanted to shoot themselves at a certain point, and then they changed it to ranked choice voting, and it became like an hour and a half. So if at a local level, I think the practical arguments are the strongest. It's like, look, like everyone, hates these like multiple rounds. If you end up in this situation, it costs you money you don't have. I think that's the most effective way for current officials.
Thank you. So we're going to give you the last word, Andrew, before we finish our meeting. And so tell us a little bit about how the Forward Party is going, and then closing remarks on when you think you might be in Arizona, and how we together help move this movement forward.
So I've done a number of events around the country, and they are like nothing you can imagine. Like I didn't know what they were going to be like because it's your first time on this particular tour. And imagine hundreds of people coming together in a comedy club in some cases, or like a city winery performance space, and we have an hour-long talk about the future of democracy, but it's really, really truthful and energetic and fun. And the ranked choice voting organizations that have been there have signed up like 100 volunteers at the event. And then people walk out in many cases with a book that makes, I believe, like a very clear case for this kind of reform. I've now done that kind of event, in 10 cities around the country. And it's been amazing. Like the folks who've been a part of it are like, I've never seen anything like this. It's like half book talk, half comedy event, half political rally. I know I realize that adds up to 150%, but you know what I mean. So this thing is what the people need. Like I'm very, very convinced of it. I spent this last event in New York. We recorded it like it was a Netflix special. So we're going to have some canned version of it that we're not sure where we're going to try and plant it, but I'm excited about planting a similar tree in Phoenix. I'm sure I'll go during the winter when it's shitty here and nice there, because why not? The Forward Party is a lot of fun. I'd say the primary emotion around the Forward Party is intrigue. Like people are like, can we do this? Like, is this possible? So it's off to a rousing start. We have thousands and thousands of volunteers and signups around the country. Please do check it out or sign up at forwardparty.com and see if there's an opportunity that you get excited about. We have candidates reaching out to us. Like over a dozen candidates have reached out to us about working with us, all the way from Senate candidates to local candidates. So there's this massive void that we're filling. And I think the sky's the limit for us, in large part because I know the way that the energy flows go. What do I mean? I started running for president in 2017 to early 2018 is when I announced. No one cared, because no one cares about a 2020 marginal presidential candidate when the midterms haven't even happened. In our case, things are going to heat up essentially every day between now and next November. Uh, and so you're going to see the energy around the Forward Party and around RCV in Arizona just rise and rise. We have a bunch of steps to take. You know, it's not like you can just like forget about it and like show up that day. I mean, like you have to work hard now. But the case we're making is going to be clearer and more compelling every step of the way, all the way up through next November, where hopefully we'll put some points on the board. And then the energy around what we're doing is going to go higher still, because there's going to be a national freakout about 24 the day after the midterms in 22. So I can see the trajectory of the Forward Party. We've got like a really fantastic start, and I think we're just going to grow and grow over almost each coming day. So super excited about it. The people are like you all, like they're patriotic, principled, rational, optimistic, solutions-oriented people, a little bit nerdy. Like imagine an organization of like thousands or tens of thousands of people like you, and that's what the Forward Party is. I'm really excited about it. Like with this group of people, you can transform the country.
Thank you very, very much, Andrew. We sure appreciate your joining us and being willing to take your time and spend some time with us. We thank everybody who asked questions. I think we got to most of them. We will try to follow up with the ones we didn't get to. But again, thank you very much, Andrew. We will look forward to hosting you here in Arizona sometime during our wonderful warm winter.